Hey folks, it's Rob Flux here with another Sunday session, and today is a little bit different. We're going to be talking about not just how we can actually make money through the property development process, but how in the process we can actually give back to the community and hopefully to end homelessness in many, many shapes and forms. And in order to do that, I want to bring in two very special guests, Tracy and Sally from Homes for Homes. So firstly, welcome Tracy and Sally.
Thank you.
Homelessness, it's a very, very big, I guess, topic, and housing affordability and all sorts of things related to that. Tell us a little bit mouthful, a little bit about Homes for Homes, who you are, where you came from, and what is the impact that you're actually trying to have, I guess, across our entire industry.
Beautiful. I'll let you start, Tracy.
Thank you. Thanks, Sally. I guess first just I'll introduce a little bit about Homes for Homes. We are a charitable organisation that is using property for purpose. So we are really about bringing the whole community together to be able to help solve one of Australia's biggest challenges. As Rob said, just being able to access housing today is a challenge for a lot of people, not just those on the margins, but we're seeing more and more people that are impacted in being able to access that, even from those that are working. So our charity is around being able to bring in a new stream of funding to the community housing sector to be able to increase the supply of social and affordable housing. So we launched in 2015 and we've been operational ever since. We are a national organisation. And we're really proud that the money that we raise in each state stays in every state. So we're able to be not only be able to drive donations through from a state perspective, but we're able to make the impact in and where we work, live and play every single day. So Homes for Homes is proudly created by The Big Issue, and hopefully some of you are familiar. The Big Issue has been operational now for 28 years, one of Australia's most, well-renowned social enterprises. And where The Big Issue really focuses on being able to provide those on the margins with the opportunity to earn an income. It was also acknowledged that housing is such an important aspect for those on the margins to be able to help solve and change their lives positively. And we also know that housing first, or the housing first model, is such an important approach to being able to help our community. So we are all about being able to use the power of property to be able to to make generational change where we can.
And it's the generational change that we'll touch on a little bit later, because the initiative that you've created here has a long-lasting impact. I would say it's more like a snowball, very slow to start, and then later on is going to build and build and build, and then keep on giving back forever. So I'm excited to be able to talk a bit about that, but I want to park that for a moment. I think most of us are familiar with The Big Issue, but very few are actually across Homes for Homes. Where did the initiative actually come from? So take us back in time as to where did this concept come from?
Absolutely. I always love to say, I wish we could put our hands on our heart and say it was innovatively created out of Australia, but it actually came out of a developer in California many years ago. And if anyone's ever travelled through California, it's very hard not to see the impact of homelessness that has on the state. And this developer, an organisation called Lanier, and Jeff Roos, who is the director of that company, really wanted to be able to create a model where he felt that he was able to contribute back to such a societal issue. So he came up with the concept that for every sale of the property that he developed, he would donate 0.1% of the sale price into a fund, and then he would invite his homeowners or his purchasers to come along with the journey with him as well, and ask them to also pledge that promise, so when they sell in the future of the property that they're buying from him, that they also donate 0.1%. So it created this long-term sustainable funding stream. And so we were very blessed to have some CEOs in Australia that were invited over to America to hear what Jeff was doing. They were so impressed by the scheme, they brought it back to Australia. We went through an incubation period, because one of the things that we wanted to really understand was, could it be not just one developer? that was able to contribute to the entire industry to connect hands? Could we also get in not just one state? Could we go national? Is it something that we could take as a national approach? So that incubation definitely showed that there was that could be achieved. So Homes for Homes was born. We partnered with our first large-scale developer in 2015 and launched in Canberra on a project over there. For every block of land that is sold in this particular suburb, Homes for Homes is part of that initiative. So every purchaser that comes along and buys the block of land, a conversation is had, and they're invited to pledge their the 0.1% of the sale of their property in the future, whenever that may be.
And hence the long-lasting, I guess, intergenerational change that you're actually proposing here, because what you're proposing is not just the individual sale that happens at the start, but then the next person, when they sell, I guess then also donating, and a pledge for them to also ask the next person. And so it's the gift that keeps on giving, for want of a better word. And at all stages in the process, it's a donation. And so tax deductible in the process, and also voluntary in the process. And so at any point in time, anyone can feel like they can opt out. But Australia being a very charitable, I guess, country, I see this as something that will have long-lasting impact.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in there, because that was the very thing that I see. So just for context, I'm part of the Property Development Network community in South Australia.
Correct.
And
I was going to say that.
So I was very excited to be able to share Homes for Homes with the greater community, because I've seen the pay it forward spirit at a local level with our community, and obviously with the developer community at large. And I think from my perspective, being in business and being in business development all my life, I've always loved the fact that this Homes for Homes model is so simple and it is so scalable, and everybody can jump on board. And in the conversations that I have with people at the end of it, when they have their aha moment and go, oh my God, I get this, I have the next thing they say is, oh my God, why didn't I hear about this sooner? So I'm thrilled that we get to have this conversation and continue that on. So thank you, Rob.
Yeah, that's okay. So, and there's multiple parts to this. And there's the donation part. There's the asking the next person to also donate part, and then there's the what is actually done with the money part. So I want to try and deal with this as three different parts of the conversation, if we can, just so that everyone understands how we can have the greatest amount of impact. So firstly, as a developer, and we've got the largest community of small-scale developers in the country at the moment, and we're somewhere in the vicinity of 26,500 people out there. As small-scale developers, we don't have the financial resources of the big guys. And so when we pledge our projects and that sort of thing, it's something that sometimes our developers are first-time developers, and they're just, I guess they're trying to do that just to further themselves in life. They still want to give back, but they're worried about the impact of what that might actually have on them. So there's two ways that they can participate in this. So firstly, their own donation, and then also asking the incoming purchaser to then pledge. So let's just talk about each of those elements. And I don't mind which one of you answers the question, but I guess how do they firstly participate or choose to participate in the process?
Sally, this one's definitely in your ballpark.
Straight away, if somebody is wanting to participate, it's having a conversation with us or with myself, and having a conversation around which project or their project, and registering their project with Homes for Homes, which is simply done through having a conversation and creating a MOU type scenario with us. So they've registered a property with us, and then we go through that process. So when somebody registers their property with us or their project with us, they have the option to donate or match the donation if they choose to, and that's the voluntary part. But more importantly, as you've said before, is when those incoming homeowners then sell in the future, we've got that ripple effect and that ongoing pay it forward effect.
Yeah, so, and I'll play that back a little bit differently just so that everyone can grab that. So the primary thing that you're asking for is them to ask the incoming purchaser to pledge their future sale. That's the primary thing. So the developer themselves today, if they don't have a huge amount of cash today, they can still participate and make an impact just by asking someone else to participate in a future sale. It doesn't even have to be on the current sale. So that future sale might be in 10 years' time. So it's not even taking something out of that person's pocket today.
Absolutely, Rob. And I think that's the beauty of what Homes for Homes is about. It is around a set and forget. So if you register today, as you said, you may not be selling your property for years to come. So the concept of not being, most charities will say, can you pull out your wallet today and hand over some cash, and that's how you donate. Ours is based on the fact that, as I said, it's about accumulating your asset growth over time, and then being able to contribute a small amount of that at the time of sale when you sell in the future, whenever that may be. But absolutely, our development partners, our first and foremost ask is about having that conversation with the homeowner. It's about bringing awareness to this topic or this issue that is such a challenge for Australia. You hear it in the media all the time, being able to access the challenges that people are being able to face these days, just to be able to literally be accessing not just their own home, but rental, or if they've got their own home, being able to maintain it and still be able to afford the basics in life as well. So homelessness is really impacting not just those that you see rough sleeping. Statistically, it's only 7% of the entire population of those classified as homeless. Mm-hmm. The large majority of those are unseen. So people that are literally potentially escaping domestic violence, or women over 55 is one of the largest growing cohorts that are facing homelessness today, where they're depleting their wealth really quickly in trying to maintain a home. So, if we can, raise donations for reinvestment and open up the supply of housing for our most vulnerable, then I think that's something that we're really, really proud of doing. And we love being able to partner with the development community to be able to bring that to reality.
Yeah, and so for anyone wanting to participate in this, I'll put Sally's contact details on the screen so they can reach out and actually have a conversation to understand how to actively participate and how to, volunteer their project, whether it be selling a brand new, it might be a knockdown rebuild, something really small, or a renovation project that you've done, or it might be, the 20 townhouse or 100 lot land subdivision that you're doing. Whatever it is, no project is too small or too large to actually participate in this. But there's the asking them to participate. Then there's the option for the developer to then also try and match that donation.
Correct.
So you've got the intergenerational change, but also we want to make a change today as much as we can. And so that's the opportunity to make the change today, is by the developer actually participating in today's money, whatever it is that they can, tax deductably.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what does a typical donation look like?
I was just going to say, so typically a donation is 0.1%. So if I bring that back to $1 million property, it's $1,000. So
which is not a huge amount of money. When we're talking about, the size of the projects that we're doing, it might be $1,500, $2,000 that we're actually donating towards the cause. But then that goes, towards the ability to have an immediate impact on, homelessness today, and as you touched on, lots of different causes that you guys contribute into, and so the funds go into a pool, and then that pool gets reinvested into, many projects to then help out. How does the money get repurposed?
Absolutely. So the money that's raised in a state, as I said, stays in that state. So that money is nurtured. And when we feel that there is sufficient funds that would make a difference to a project becoming viable, we literally open up a open tender process for the granting of those funds. And we invite anyone who is got a project that has got a social or affordable housing element to it to pitch for those funds. It is a very competitive process, as you could appreciate, though there is guidelines that need to be achieved for anyone who's applying for the funds. The project, as I said, needs to first and foremost be able to increase the supply. So it's about putting new housing stock into the market. It needs to be sustainable, both environmentally and socially, and the organisation that's delivering it needs to be able to demonstrate that they've achieved these types of projects in the past as well. As I said, as an open tender process, those applications are reviewed by a panel of experts in the field that know where the housing need is greatest for their communities. They understand the implications of the cohorts that are being supported. So generally there's a housing advisory group in each state and territory that Homes for Homes has brought together. The people or the members that sit on those housing advisory groups are made up of expertise across academia, social services, for example, private sector. They've got really deep experience and been working in the industry for a very long time. They review those applications against the criteria, and they have to come up to a consensus and agree on which project or projects that they really believe that the money would be best invested into. But to date, Rob, really our funding has been used predominantly for the equity component of a project, and that funding then allows the organisation to be able to access traditional capital to get a project off the ground. But we're delighted. We've been able to grant over $2.2 million nationally to date. That's sort of across 22 different projects. The cohorts vary, but we've been able to house well over 300 people that simply wouldn't have had access to housing had it not been for that funding. So we are just delighted with the generosity of our donors who contribute through the process.
And what are the kinds of projects that, you said 22 projects so far, what are the kinds of projects that that you've been able to fund?
I was just going to jump in with SA1, and I'll let you add the rest. So in the other states, Rob, we're up to sort of 6 and 7 grant rounds here, and just in the last month, we actually had our first grant round here in South Australia. So that was $100,000 that we provided as a grant, and that went out to Community Equity Housing here in Australia. They have a partner in the Copper Triangle, got that right this time, and that was used to create 5 2-bedroom homes for aging people. So it was actually enabling those aging people in their community to actually stay and continue to live in their area versus having to come down to Adelaide to find suitable housing as they age gracefully. So that was one of the recent projects here. So something a little bit different for the South Australian market, and Tracy can elaborate more on the rest of the ones that we've done.
I aged disgracefully, just for the record, but yeah.
Nothing wrong with that at all. And I think ageing in place is such a key thing at the moment. I think what Sally didn't sort of touch on is this is a regional project that's being funded, and we do find in the regions, a lot of people that have actually been born and bred in those communities do have to relocate at that moment in time to find access to a suitable aged care facilities, and we don't want to see that. We want to be able to see people long-term stay in the place in which they're familiar with. So, but it's been quite diverse, some of our projects, from Aboriginal housing through to people coming out of incarceration, domestic violence, women ageing. We've had disability services, and there's a project in Victoria that was quite large. It was funded also in conjunction with the state government, which looks at young mums and bubs where their babies would traditionally be removed from birth, where they're placed into short-term transitional housing, where they're able to then access that housing for a period of 1 to 2 years to help them learn to become a sustainable mum, but also looking for long-term outcome solutions for them. So very, very diverse projects, but the organisations that have been funded do some amazing work in the field that they, and with the cohorts that they're supporting. Quite often the projects have got wraparound services to help provide longer term outcomes for the tenants that are able to access that housing.
To create that generational change in numerous different ways.
Yeah, some massive impacts. And And that's only since you've started in 2017 from memory.
15.
2015, sorry, my mistake. But it's the long term, because this is going to it's the gift that keeps on giving, and it's going to come back and again and again and again. And as I said, that snowball effect. What is the intention for the longer term? You've got some goals with regards to how much money you want to raise and how much impact you're going to have. Where do you see this actually going?
So all of our economic modelling that we've done has been looking, as you said, at that longer sort of strategy. So the homeowners that register today and continue to pledge that promise. We've looked at based on the number of dwellings that are across Australia at the moment. So if we were able to have 3% of all Australians participate in Homes for Homes, every 30 years, the organisation could generate in excess of $1 billion for investment in social and affordable housing projects.
That's just as homeowners.
Yeah, and we know that funding, as I said, being utilised as equity component of a project unlocks about $8 of traditional capital for a project. So that, that's $8 billion worth of projects that wouldn't have existed had not been for the generosity of registrants. Now that's on 3% of all of Australians participating in Homes for Homes. But could you imagine what the scalability of this could look like if we were able to double that or triple that over time? And yes, it is a long-term sustainable solution, but it's like everything. We want to become part of the DNA of selling and buying property in Australia in the future. If you think about when seatbelts were first introduced, that took about 17 years for adoption. When you talk about wearing a helmet when you're riding a bike, it was around the same time. So even though we're relatively new in the market, we do want to get to a point where everybody knows what Homes for Homes is and that it is just part of buying and selling a property in Australia.
Yeah,
that's our ambition.
And you have to dream big for it to actually happen, and you're already on that road. So congrats in that regard, and hence me providing my community as reach to try and see if we can actually further that. So I would love for all of the developers out there in our community to at least at minimum inquire about how they can actually make some impact, but ideally pledge either some cash for some immediate impact or the resale of their finished product, put that into the pool for that to then add to the snowball effect. So if you're out there, if you want to make a difference, one of our key mottos is pay it forward and help others first. This is a perfect example of exactly that. And Australia being a very giving community, I think that would be very achievable. So now that said, there's the mechanics of how this works. So it's great for everyone to actually say, yes, I want to participate. But there's the mechanics in the fact that how do we leave this fish hook on the property to then be the gift that keeps on giving? Now, legal processes around the country are slightly different, so we might keep this at a very high level. But once somebody pledges their property for that future sale, what's the mechanism that happens? Firstly, how do they register? And then secondly, what is the process that leaves that fish hook in place?
Excellent. I'll probably answer this one. I think there's two ways that anyone can participate, and we would encourage anyone out there today to jump onto our website and you can register your own home through our website. It's a really simple process, takes about 5 minutes. We just grab some information from you about yourself and the property, and then what we do is we issue a donation deed. So a donation deed is the document that I guess is signed by the homeowner that is pledging both their promise, but also providing the opportunity for us to recognise that on title. So I always like to use analogies, and I always say the easiest analogy to use is if you're an organ donor, you go on a national register. So if something happens to you in the future, anybody knows about what your desire was. Similarly, because this is a set and forget process, you're registering today, but you may not pledge or donate in many years to come. We use the Land Titles Office as our register to acknowledge that donation deed exists. And we do that using, in most states and territories, a caveat on title. Queensland, we use an administration advice, but they ultimately are exactly the same thing. Once it's lodged on title, it stays there, and when a title search is done, it appears on title so that everybody is aware that there has been a commitment or a pledge for that donation at the time of sale.
Now, as property developers, we're very, very familiar with a caveat, okay? And it's this big, scary thing that puts a padlock on the property. And so I instantly think that's going to cause a whole bunch of, hey, I don't want things to happen. I want to still be able to do what it is that I want to do. This is a different kind of caveat in how it actually operates. And so it's not as big and scary as when we're trying to protect some assets or some or an investment that we've had with someone else. And I think you used the term permissive caveat when we were chatting previously. How does this caveat actually work?
Yeah, we call it the caveat for good. So I guess, we acknowledge the fact that from an industry perspective, a caveat's always been used as something that has been a blocker to a transaction. But for us, this is about, as I said, really just using the Land Titles Office as a reminder of that promise or that pledge. So yes, in South Australia, it's a permissive caveat. It doesn't block anything. We've worked with the industry really hard to try and make sure that we minimise any impact on a dealing, because that's not what we're here for. We're simply here to be able to make an impact for those on the margins. And so it is slightly different, the type of caveat used in different states and territories. Unfortunately, we don't have a national platform where it's all the same, but we've really utilised the caveat system where we can to minimise the impact for that. We've worked with all of the lenders. We've got the support of the ABA. And so as I said, it's about trying to make the greatest impact without having the biggest impact on the process. We're also embedded in PEXA, which I'm sure most of your listeners are familiar with. So it's a seamless process when the donation happens. If the property is registered, it's acknowledged in the system, the transaction or the donation is automatically generated as a disbursement line item. As long as the homeowner wishes to continue that pledge, that money will just flow straight to our fund. It's just like when you're paying a disbursement of any other kind, rates, utilities, and the donation.
Yeah. So now you touched on how that works in South Australia, but it's slightly different legally in each individual state. So just for completeness, let's talk about, I guess, the differences between the states, because there might be some subtleties that people need to be aware of. I think you said New South Wales and Victoria have a very similar mechanism. So
yeah, absolutely. So the only time there is it does require consent to the transfer of land in New South Wales, for example, and the ACT. In those places, we provide consent in every circumstance. We've been operating there for many years. The process is quite seamless, and those that are generally involved or have been experienced know and understand how that process works. In Victoria, again, it's a slightly different process where we would provide that consent at the time of the settlement. In Queensland, as I said, that's an administration advice. It doesn't block any sort of dealing because it's a different type of instrument. So it is very varied, slightly varied is the word I was trying to say. What we do, though, have on our website under our practitioner section is a state-by-state basis, which explains each of those mechanisms and how they're addressed to minimise it, so that it's just a seamless process through the settlement.
Yeah, and when we say practitioners, what we're talking about is, I guess, the legal people who are actually going to be administering this process, just so they understand the implications at your end, because whilst we might be, so we are a national organisation, we've got people doing these all the way around the country. It will be slightly different in each instance, but the framework is the same. The framework, you make a pledge, that pledge in some way, shape or form is registered on title. That is a reminder that at the point of settlement, for the settlements process team, so people like PEXA and like your solicitors in the future, to actually see that intention. And that's important because, as you said, people die, all sorts of things like that. It's important to know what that intention was. And then at that point, even then, whilst it's a pledge, they can still opt out at that point if they really need to. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It's voluntary all the way through. So if your circumstances change, if you register today and then in 5 years' time your circumstances change and you find yourself in a position where you simply can't afford to make that donation, there's no need for you to donate. You can continue to invite the person who's buying into the property to continue that pledge so that they can make a future contribution, but you can elect not to. Or ultimately, at any given point in time, you can just withdraw your participation by simply reaching out through our inquiries line, and we will transact that for you. And it's as simple as removing the caveat from title and invalidating the deed, and your participation is withdrawn. And that's done at no
Super
cost.
simple.
Yeah, and the simpler it is for everyone, the easier it is to actually do. And like you said, set and forget. And it is a very small element to the process. I guess from a sales process, you're actually not a huge amount of cash actually leaving your hands, but it has a huge impact.
Yeah.
Now, just some myth busting, because some of that sounded a little bit scary. So firstly, completely voluntary from start to finish. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And I think that's for me is the beauty of it, is that voluntary nature is through every step of the process, and at any time it's just simply the inquiries line or a phone call to Homes for Homes, and we would take that next action, and it's super simple.
Yeah, and so there's the opportunity for you to contribute today, but also an invitation for the next person to then come in. So as the incoming purchaser buys, it's inviting them again, optional for them to actually come in. But what do you find is the take-up rate of people when a transaction actually occurs? What's the retention rate for the next owner to come in?
I'm going to jump in on this one because this is one of my business development statistics that I love. So from that perspective, we have an 80% continuation uptake rate. So for when it goes from the original owner to the next owner, there's an 80% retention rate of that promise continuing, and that's what excites me, because it's those continuation of all those little small amounts that are accumulating to that longevity and that impact on a long term.
Yeah. I'd just like to add, I guess, even in our short term, in the 5 years, it's been longer than 5 years, since 2015, since we're in operating. We've got properties that have turned over 3 times already during that period and continued to donate, and each individual homeowner has made a contribution. So that property itself has been amazing in being able to help increase the supply of social and affordable housing for their communities.
Yeah, which is, I guess, a fantastic initiative. Although in 9 years, property turning over 3 times is a little bit out of the norm. Typically, it's somewhere in the 9 to 10 year mark.
That's correct. Yeah.
So either very, very popular home or people are moving out. There's something going on in that suburb. I don't know. Maybe we should get onto it. Maybe there's a trend there. Who knows?
Yeah.
What other myths out there, I guess, that people might be scared of? What are the other things that they should be aware of?
I think probably one that we hear often is, will it impact my ability to get finance? As I said from before, we have worked really diligently with the lenders to ensure that that's not the case. The caveats that we use certainly don't impact their ability to lodge a mortgage or provide finance. But as you said, we're a relatively new initiative in the market. So the awareness of Homes for Homes is something that we're eager to continue to grow. And so there will be occasionally where a broker or a lender may not have heard of us. And so educating the market is something that we do here at Homes for Homes as well. But it certainly, from a process perspective, doesn't impact the ability for someone to secure finance.
Yeah. And I think that comes into part of that, it's we operate under a partnership sort of model. So it's helping with that, in that partnership role, to have those conversations. And I think the next myth is around the sales process. So I think that's worth exploring too.
Oh, I can see many potential challenges there. And that's not from the intention of the owner selling and not from the intention of the developer wanting to do the work, but the fact that whenever there's a negotiation, there's usually this third party that sits in there called a real estate agent. And the real estate agent doesn't have a vested interest in the donation continuing. They've got a vested interest in the transaction selling, and they want to remove friction. So So what is it that we need to do to try and firstly educate our agents? And secondly, how do we make it as seamless as possible for the agent?
Tracy?
Yeah, look, I think you're absolutely right. We know that after working in the industry for a long period, it's quite traditional for organisations and developers to have outsourced that sales side of it. But one of the things that we feel that we do really well through our partnership is being able to provide not just the collateral, but the support, not directly just to the developer, but also to anyone else that's involved in the process. So if they are using an outsourced real estate agent, that we're able to really engage that agent as well, so they can confidently go in and have a conversation. And if they are being asked questions, not be afraid to be able to have, or to have the knowledge to be able to answer those, but also that agent feels like they're making an impact as well, because that's ultimately every conversation that's being had is impactful if it's done absolutely at the point of sale. So we certainly know that that's the case, that we would provide as much support as we possibly can, and as many materials as we can to provide that experience for the sales rep to be able to go out there and feel that they can have that conversation with the incoming homeowner.
I've just had a giant brainwave that what if we actually got the agents to donate as well through their agents commission?
Some do. So one of my classic examples here in SA is that we've got one of our developer partners is very passionate about his vision for what he wanted to do, which was create community through the development that he was building. He's got some great sales agents on, and I asked that these were my first agents when I first started with Homes for Homes. So I've asked them these sorts of questions, and because they were provided and got the understanding and they saw into the developer's vision, they brought into that vision as well, and as a result they're actually donating part of their commissions as well on the apartments in that scenario that they're selling. So they do come in as well.
Oh, no, I was thinking bigger and badder than that, Sally. I'm thinking not just that particular project. Let's sign the agent up for all future sales that agent is actually doing, because they're the ones who are transacting on many properties everywhere. How do we get those guys involved?
Well, we are having a conversation at the moment from a partnership perspective with the Real Estate Institute. So watch this space. Sally's on a mission.
There you go. All you agents out there, if you want to make a difference in the world, that's a fantastic way to get involved in that. Fantastic initiative. And I'm hoping that a message gets out very loud and very clear to our community, that you're able to participate in many ways. One, if you've actually got some funds and you can actually contribute, you can make an immediate impact. Two, if you're not in that position, you can still have an impact that will have a lasting change, I guess, an intergenerational change. And three, it's just about having the conversation and spreading the word and making a difference. Now, I would love to see this initiative go much further. So anything that we can do in that regard, I would love to. What is it I've missed, folks? Is there anything else that you want to throw out there as some parting words of wisdom for our community out there?
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in with my Sally nag, which is around that impact scenario. So as you've said, there's lots of different ways people can contribute, and Homes for Homes is a community-led solution. So as a home renter, I've been able to register my rent in that same scenario. So I encourage everybody that owns their own home, even if they're not thinking of selling yet, or they're doing their buy and hold strategies with their properties, register those properties. Something might change, and part of that story of saying, hey, the community's come together and we've got this increase, those stories behind the stories are great fodder for Homes for Homes and me as a marketing person to be able to, keep that story front and centre in the collective community's mind. So that's another way to leverage it. So registering your home or your rental. Then obviously you've got your projects, which is what we've been talking about as well. And then certainly sharing the, hey, I just heard of this really great concept. Do you know about it? And, networking the networks from my perspective and for anyone in my role is the key thing is we're at the point in the Adelaide market, which excites me, where we're getting industry referrals now through some of the industry bodies. So, you know, that's a sort of a signal of a slight tipping point for us. So those communities rallying together, if you're in other business networking events, you know, what opportunities can we share the one-to-many approach in any way, shape or form to get it out there.
Absolutely. So if you've got any questions, concerns, want to contribute in any way, shape or form, I've put Sally's contact details there for everyone to reach out. It's been fantastic to share your message. So thank you very much, both Tracy and Sally, for, I guess, one, what you're doing, and two, for the opportunity to actually spread the word. So thank you very much for that. Now, folks, just for the wider community, just want to let you know that we love sending messages like this out and having industry experts talk to us in all different ways, shapes and forms at all of our events all the way around the country. We run those in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne and Adelaide, where Sally does help to volunteer, I guess, to help run our events there. So I want to thank her for that contribution. But we would love to see everybody at one of our future upcoming events. I'm going to say until then, thank you, folks, and bye for now.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Bye.